After about a month of hiatus, you probably thought this podcast was down for the count, but no, it's back, with an episode on that curse of science fiction fandom, the television show that is cancelled before its time. Let's go. Welcome to the Cloister Room, episode 004, Requiem for a Drama, and eventually I'm going to stop being able to come up with puns to name these episodes. Now, one of two things probably just happened. Either that melody caused a lump to form in your throat, or it left you completely indifferent. If it was the latter, then you're probably one of the unfortunate souls who never watched Terminator the Sarah Connor Chronicles, and are thus unscathed by its cancellation. Lately I've been thinking a lot about Terminator the Sarah Connor Chronicles. It's now early September, and over the next couple of weeks Americans will tune into the major broadcast and cable networks and see a crop of new shows and returning favorites. And while there's a lot to look forward to this season, there are some notable absences on the schedule. For me, the two shows I am saddest to see gone are Terminator the Sarah Connor Chronicles and Pushing Daisies. Now, maybe you think it odd to mention these two shows in one breath. The first is a serious and dark action show about killer robots disguised as humans, and the latter is a whimsically romantic, if slightly morbid, comedy about a pie maker who wakes the dead. But the shows have more in common than you might think. Both shows are very genre-oriented, both are very serialized and character-driven, both are technically intricate in very expensive ways. And most interestingly of all, although they aired on different networks, they had similar life cycles. Both premiered in the 2007-2008 season to solid initial numbers, but struggled to find an audience. Both had their first seasons cut short by the Writers Guild strike. Both were on the bubble between cancellation and renewal, and both were given a second chance and premiered new seasons in the fall of 2008. Both of them saw severe ratings drops, and both were ultimately cancelled. Both shows ended their second seasons on what we might more or less call a cliffhanger. And, oh, yeah, both shows were absolutely fantastic. In different ways, each show was something a little bit different from what you'd expect to see on network television. Daisies with its offbeat concept and quirky storytelling style, and Terminator with its decidedly science fiction take on what had been primarily an action chase franchise. So you can probably understand why I'm upset. It's a terrible feeling, which leads me to wonder, is it really worth it? Was it ever worth investing in these shows to begin with if they only left me feeling cold in the end? And is it worth it for you, the listener, to watch critically acclaimed but short-lived shows knowing that you'll only go through the same mourning process in the end? Well, I'll answer that right after this quick break. And now for a brief but terribly urgent interruption.
Look, whenever you see me in this part of the TARDIS pacing up and down like this, be a good chap and don't interrupt me, will you? Unless it's terribly urgent. It's not terribly urgent, is it?
Escape from the Radio Free Skaro bunker.
Broadcast via the Subwave Network.
Powered by Huon Energy.
This is Bridging the Rift,
A podcast bringing the Doctor Who universe together. You may remember us from the Radio Free Skaro Wednesday cutaway episode, The Ballad of Jack and Yanto. Yes, we're Radio Free Skaro's first spin-off series. The Canine and Company to their Davison Doctor Who. Think of us as their swotty younger sibling, the Lisa Simpson to their Bart.
We think the Doctor Who Universe fandom is the best there is. It's enthusiastic, thoughtful, irreverent, insightful and creative, but it's also split into enclaves, be it old fandom or new, live journal or forums, Torchwood or Doctor Who, and the many different types of creative pursuits. We want to celebrate, highlight and discuss all the different parts of the fandom, talk about what they're talking about, look at what they're creating and weigh in on hot topics and debates. We're also hoping to recreate the atmosphere of a convention panel by inviting a guest panellist with a special interest in our subject to join us for each discussion. So subscribe to us at iTunes or find us at bridgingtherift.wordpress.com.
Yeah, I highly recommend Bridging the Rift. It's a great podcast. One of my favorite episodes was their 5th episode, in which they talked about how a new series Doctor Who fan can get into the classic series and gave their recommendations. But I also admit that I do have an ulterior motive for plugging them, and that is because in their 7th episode, I was their guest panelist to talk about issues of canon in Doctor Who, which you may remember was the topic of the 3rd episode of this podcast, although you may not remember because of the ridiculously long hiatus I went on. I will put a link to Bridging the Rift and that particular episode in the show notes. Now, we should probably get back to our discussion, but, before we do that, I think it's time for the Dune quote of the week. Arrakis teaches the attitude of the knife, chopping off what's incomplete and saying, now it's complete because it ended here. From Collected Sayings of Muad'Dib by the Princess Irulan. And unfortunately, sometimes we have to adopt the attitude of the knife when we're talking about the shows we love that are cancelled and have ended. Anyhow, back to the highly scripted me-talking part. The answer to my question of whether it's worth investing in a show that's only cancelled before its time is yes, of course. It is worth investing in a show like that, or a show that looks like it's in danger of cancellation if that show is really very good. Terminator is a good show, as is Pushing Daisies, and even though watching either of those shows is going to leave you feeling upset it was ever cancelled, you're going to enjoy the experience of watching the show while it's still on your television. It's my belief that good storytelling enriches our lives, and even while television has proven a remarkably effective way of delivering garbage to our living rooms, and also, as T.S. Eliot has put it, of allowing us to listen to the same joke at the same time and still remain lonesome, it can also be a medium for delivering engaging and enriching storytelling. I suspect you already agree with me if you're listening to this podcast, so I hope you'll also agree that it's worth it to bring something potentially enriching into your world, even if it's going to be over too soon. So, quite simply, if you like good things, watch good things, even the short-lived good things. It's good for you. But the benefit these shows can bring to you is only part of the reason I think that you should watch these cult hits that are cancelled too soon. The other is that it demonstrates to the networks that even if shows like Terminator or Pushing Daisies or NBC's Kings or Fox's Firefly from a few years back aren't attracting sufficient numbers for its primetime slot, they are finding some kind of audience. And there are people out there who are watching these shows. It sends a message that even if one show wasn't successful on TV, it's still potentially lucrative on DVD or in comic book continuations, or through new developing business models that don't even exist yet. What I'm saying is, I suppose, that it's not only worthwhile for you to invest in these shows, but also worthwhile for networks to invest in these shows, both their existing failed properties and developing new shows that are interesting, engaging, and need time to develop an audience. For instance, look at the network Fox. Fox has a reputation for canceling good shows far too soon, which it partially deserves, but keep in mind that it's rather brave for Fox to take the programming risks that it does in the first place. Look at Dollhouse, a Fox show that seemed doomed from the start. Other networks would never even have given the show a chance, or would have axed it due to the early problems with production, or decided not to renew it after the poor ratings for season 1, but Fox has decided to give it a chance for a second season, and get this, Kevin Riley, the entertainment president for Fox, cited potential fan backlash as one of the reasons they decided not to cancel it. Now, I'm not so sure Dollhouse was a good enough show to deserve a second season, but I'm glad at the renewal nonetheless because of the symbolic victory that it represents for shows like Dollhouse that are outside of the mainstream and struggle to find an audience. Yes, it is true that the same network also canceled Terminator the Sarah Connor Chronicles, and boy, do I remember that. But Dollhouse's renewal does give me hope, so I'm counting this one as a win. After all, I still have my Sarah Connor Chronicles Season 1 box set, and I'll be getting Season 2 when it comes out in a couple weeks, and you know what? You should too. When you spend money on DVD box sets, you're using that money to vote in favor of underdog shows. And maybe Terminator the Sarah Connor Chronicles isn't such a lost cause after all. Thomas Dekker, one of the show's stars, has hinted that there may possibly be a direct-to-DVD film in the future. Now, I won't hold my breath, but I will do my part to show Fox that DVDs that have Terminator the Sarah Connor Chronicles written on them will sell. at least to me. So yes, watching genre shows that got canceled early is good, not just for you, but also for the general state of science fiction television. From shows that were canceled this past television season, I do highly recommend Terminator the Sarah Connor Chronicles, as well as Pushing Daisies and Kings. And then, of course, there's also shows that have been canceled in years past, like the now classic Firefly. Now, that's a show that is also well worth your time and money. But I'd also love to hear what shows you loved that were canceled far too soon, and you'd like to recommend. So, go to thecloisterroom.com and chime in on the comments for the show notes, or send a message on Twitter to @thecloisterroom. And before I close, I'd just like to fit in another shameless plug. I don't know if you're aware of the video blog that I participate in, known as Video Bloggery, but as part of it, I recently did a Doctor Who-related song called The Ultimate Foe, about the character of the Valeyard. You'll find a link to that in the show notes, as well as a link to the aforementioned episode of Bridging the Rift that I participated in. And if you decide to ignore those shameless plugs, then you'll hear me on the next episode of The Cloister Room, where I'll be talking not about the shows I won't be seeing this fall, but the shows that I will be tuning in for, both the returning shows and the new shows that I'm intrigued by. And hopefully it won't be after another month-long hiatus. But until then, this is Tom Dickinson, Two Eyes, No E's, signing off. You have been listening to The Cloister Room. Probably. Well, maybe you were just listening to something else. In any case, you're now listening to The Cloister Room, or at least the ending theme of The Cloister Room. The Cloister Room is not affiliated with any of the television shows mentioned or anyone involved in them, although, true story, Eliza Dushku, star of Dollhouse, did rent a house for my grandparents last month. So I guess, in that sense, I'm sort of loosely, distantly affiliated with Dollhouse by proxy. But not really. So no copyright infringement is intended, and I sure as hell ain't making any money off of this.